All right. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Geopolitical Trends, where truth matters and truth does matter. So, I know a lot of people are, some, not all, they can't handle it. I mean, some of us do not like to hear the truth. Human nature. What else would you do? So, but we can't shy away from saying it the way it is. And this is what I doing this channel here. So that's why I get those nasty comments or whatever. But sometimes you get something very, very, very nice. And I'm going to share one with you off the bat right away. It was from an individual screen name by Band FX3. On the other platform, by the way, he left a comment for me. He said, and I quote, "I really appreciate your honesty. Be safe on your journey of truth. You are a hero." End of quote. That was so kind. That is so kind. So, anyway, very excited to be with you as always. I got this interesting topic that really is under the radar. It's because you need to understand as to why that is and why even Canadians themselves do not even know. I'm sure by now some of them might have heard the story. Well, this has to do with Canada, yes, contributing to what's going on in Gaza. So you can categorize it any way you want, being part of the massacre there, being part of the atrocities, an accomplice, whatever. You got the idea. But this is what I'm going to be talking about and tell you exactly what Canada is doing against its own laws. So it's almost like Canada saying one thing and doing the opposite, which is no different than the other countries in the collective West. Look at just to our country here, what is saying versus what is doing. Look at the British, look at Germany. I saw an image yesterday of this German police tackling a woman in a chokehold. A woman. What's going on with Germany? Wait, this is like far beyond what Germany used to be back in 1943. And it's it's kind of, why the West has gone mad, crazy, and this is why I decided to address this, because you need to understand how Canada will not do anything without the approval of the US. So you might think of yourself as Canada is independent sovereign on papers. You got three countries. I'm telling you here, by actually four. You got Canada, Australia, UK, and Germany. They are sovereign on papers, but the decisions are made in Washington. So, and soon I think you might have to, of course, add. I didn't want to include Japan, South Korea, Philippines, New Zealand, and all that, but I'm talking about, because I want to focus on this one particular here. So, this is what I'm going to be talking about: is how Canada is contributing to what's going on in Gaza. So, before I'll do this, let me just give you some housekeeping items here to be aware of. There is one particular story I am really digging into. It might take me a few days to ensure, but I am already not surprised at all. And this one has to do with Egypt. Now, Egypt just agreed, and I just found out this morning, just agreed with Israel, okay, regarding allowing Israel to maintain control of the Egypt-Gaza border. Yeah, listen carefully. Egypt agreeing with Israel to allow the latter to control the borders between Egypt and Gaza. So, like I always tell you guys, what Arab leaders say versus what they do on the opposite ends. A hypocrisy of the highest order. So, and what kills me the most is when they say we stand with our Muslim brothers. What Muslim brothers? The whole Islam thing, they're just using it as justification. So, but anyway, I'm gonna be looking into this story, and I am very familiar with how the intelligence service of Egypt works, given my background. And I remember even the days when Amr Musa used to be the head of the intelligence service. Remember back then? Plus my former unit in the military, we used to do rotations in Egypt. So I'm very, very familiar with that country. All right, let's. Second thing is remember to join me. I think on Thursday. Yeah, on Thursday that will be 22nd on the other platform, the R. So that's I'm gonna be talking about something that is now making a headway that you need to know. I already talked about it last week. Of course, that was the reason why YouTube took down my community post. I was getting too close. Yeah, they don't want that. So, yeah, it's pathetic. It is pathetic. But in any event, we move on. You always think positive, see the good side of things. Never focus on a negative because negativity will drain you. It will drain your energy. So on Thursday, I'm gonna be on the other platform. Unfortunately, I cannot put the link because the link has some keywords in it. So just make sure to get on there. I will figure out a way of how you will know the timing and all that stuff. So all right, let me get on into this topic here, and we'll start right away because there's a lot to cover here. Oh, I see Net Rondo from Prince George in British Columbia. I'm very familiar with that area when I used to go to Whistler. Yes, I did spend some time in Whistler. As a matter of fact, I'm going to share a picture with you guys here. That was way back. Let me share a screen so you know. And you go through, of course, British Columbia, and a nice place, nice area. I always like it there over there. So, but I'm just visiting. Here's one image. This is at the top of a mountain. It was a resort there that I attended some event there. So they had the Olympic signs back then still on Whistler because that was where they did the ski slopes and all that. So that was way back. So, and this is the gondola when you take the gondola to go all the way down. So anyway, that was back then. So let's get into all this. Oh, Truth Seeker, you're right. Said good morning there and everyone. Canada is not what it used to be. How did we become U.S. puppets and lose our sovereignty? Spot on, because that's the truth, and this is exactly what I'm going to be getting into. Well, here is the thing. For Canada now, and by the way, it's off record. This is what they are doing, what they're doing regarding the arm exports. Off record, which means what, basically? That if when I read off record, it tells me that there was no oversight, it was no legislation, it was no debate, and the worst of them all is a violation of the internal law or the local law or domestic laws, whatever that is. That's what it means, off record. In another word, off the books. So, and that is regarding the arm exports, how it ends up in Israel. Usually Canada sells some weapons like every other country, but for this one, it was different. So, well, what you have to understand is that for us, the US, we're still facing this worldwide condemnation regarding the authorization of about $20 billion of additional weapons to Israel. Yes, and all this for the war in Gaza. So Canada now is taking part of this, and Canada doing it behind the scenes through some channels and ways that just breaks their own laws. So in other words, the government of the dictator Trudeau, it's disregarding the law. It's like almost who give a damn about what Canadians think. That's basically what he's doing with this. And all this has to do with weapons and ammo. But specifically, I found out that it was about $60 million of ammo that is being used as we speak. And more of it's going to be produced to be used in Gaza. That tells me also about how this could be dragged, the conflict in Gaza, for so long. So here are the questions we need to ask, because we will have to ask the key questions to understand these dynamics. And, even for some Canadians might not even be aware of. So here's the first question. Is Canada violating its own laws? So second question, are Canadians aware, given where the economy of Canada is? And we do have, Truth Seeker, you are in Canada. I remember, what's his name? Ariel was from Canada, also Montreal. The conditions in Canada is getting back. I was there a few months ago. I had to visit in Montreal, in Quebec to be exact. And things are different from what it used to be. And I lived in Canada back in late 80s. I lived a very short period there, but Canada was different, even though at that time, and I remember during early 90s, it was the fight regarding the independence of Quebec. Quebec didn't want to be part of Canada at that time, when what's his name, Jean Chrétien used to be the PM at that time. And what happened is that the Queen, Elizabeth at that time, she had to fly all the way to Canada. You know why? Look at the dollar bill of Canadian dollar. Who's in the picture? Can anybody type in the chat box? Whose picture's on the Canadian dollar? The dollar bill. Let me see in the chat box here, guys. All right, let me see. I know it takes a while before it show up here because that's how it is. Yeah, the Queen. Sariat Karakulak, you got it. You guys got it. It's the Queen. So it gives you an idea of even the sovereignty of Canada. Ain't sovereign, not just for sure. Third question: why is Canada's standard of living is going down? Because this is part of it, And the fourth question is: was Dictator T pressured to sell ammo weapon to Israel? Of course, by his master, and you all know who the master is. And those are legitimate questions we ought to consider when we're addressing this particular topic. So I had a chance to read an article. Of course, I always react to our articles. And by the way, this one's not from Canada, because here is what you need to know, and I will tackle it, that Canada had to pass a legislation, a bill of, I think, hold on, I have it right in front of me. It's the Canadian bill C11. And this one has to do with known as the Online Streaming Act. I'll get into that soon. This is why Canadians are not aware of what's going on with their own government and the policies they are embarking on, because they want to silence. You all know, remember what happened in Ottawa when Dictator T gave the order to encircle the demonstrators at that time regarding what took place 3 years ago? Regarding the COVID, right? You remember? I remember the policies they embarked on and the human rights violations they committed. This is Canada we're talking about. But it tells you right there, because Dictator T got the orders to move forward with that. This is no different, in my opinion. This is not about Canada doing it on its own. This is about Canada being pressured by the US to be part of the weapons sale to Israel in support of what's going on. And this is why I kind of, the way I see it is, Dictator T is ordered to do this one here. So there is one picture, of course, that got him in a hot water. You all remember this one here, right? Yeah. It speaks for itself. But the idea of, as I said, I had the chance to read this article from overseas. It was in English, by the way, because on Al Jazeera, and it was written by Gillian Kessler Damors. Very, very interesting and spot on, because I fact-checked certain key aspects of this article, and it makes perfect sense to me, and it's right. So now, the waging of the war in Gaza, and again, you don't just think about this particular aspect. You think about, like what I shared with you earlier, about what Egypt just agreed to this morning, allowing Israel now to control the borders between Egypt and Gaza. So think about the Saudis. Think about what the Jordanians. So think about Germany selling weapons to Israel. Think about now Canada doing the same here. So now, the idea of the transfer of these weapons, some sort of, it's already, for us, it's already renewing the scrutiny over our sort of unequivocal support for Israel, even if atrocities are committed. So it makes you just wonder about where do we stand regarding the ideals of so-called democracy or human rights or a right to dignity. Because that's what it is. When you start to think in terms of the suffering of individuals, that it defies logic. It defies logic as to where is the right from wrong. Are we that blind or oblivious to distinguish between what is right and what is wrong? And for Canada to be going into this direction, it gives me no hope in the collective West, because the collective West is corrupted. So what happened with Canada? They end up allocating $60 million. Yeah, $60 million in just ammunition. That's what we're talking. 60 million just in ammo. Well, if you know a little bit about how the production of ammo and all that stuff, 60 million is no small matter. So, and this will be a part of the production from a Canadian company as part of the sale of the US $20 billion. You just include the stuff in. A lot of people will never know, because average citizen, be it in Canada or here in the US or Germany, or like I always say, they're worrying about what do I eat for dinner. The last thing they will even read up on stuff like this or even know about it. And this is where you have now some voices inside Canada now coming up. Those are human rights lawyers are fighting this has violating the law in Canada. So, because here is the thing, for Canada's participation in these atrocities that is taking place in Gaza, so it's because one of its laws, even the one under the UN, which Canada signed into, and I'm going to get into that, it ended up violating the laws within the country itself. So basically Canada violating its own laws. Because why? It's because the law inside Canada suggests that it will ensure that Canadian-made weapons are not used in suspected human rights violation abroad as required by the law. You all see the images of what's taking place in Gaza, right? So, and this is one of the Canadian researcher by the name Kelsey Gallagher. So, the one argued this one. He said, and I quote, "Given Israel a appalling track record of violating international humanitarian law through its operations in Gaza, including in some cases which may constitute war crimes, in no way is it appropriate for Canada to supply this ammunition." End of quote. This is from the researcher at the Canadian Peace. So, and here is where the key to all this. And again, I did my own digging to ensure that what the article is talking about confirm the facts that exist on the books regarding international law. So, what I found very troubling, this one has to do with the UN Arms Trade Treaty that Canada is signed, which now by Canada doing this, meaning sending ammo and weapons to Israel, is illegal under that treaty they just signed. So what you need to, and I have the link for you guys, which I will share with you later on. Here is what happened with this treaty. Canada became became state party to the UN Arms Trade Treaty, known as ATT, which, by the way, which it signed in 2019. As per Canada practice, for all international treaties, Canada will be fully compliant with all its obligations upon accession to the ATT, which means the Armed Trade Treaty that is signed in 2019. And here is where I'm going to share the one particular clause, because you need to know this. To ensure full compliance with ATT, the government of Canada therefore introduced Bill C-47, which amends the Export and Import Permits Act to establish control on brokering of military items and to incorporate directly into Canadian law the assessment criteria laid out in the ATT, along with other amendments to further strengthen Canada's exports control. Bill C-47 received the royal assent on December 2018. So, in a simple language, guys, all this means Canada will adhere to the laws pertaining to not ship weapons to contribute to conflicts or be part of it. I mean, I remember when I was in Afghanistan, there were Canadians over there. And I was like, what the heck is a Canadian doing here? Of course, one of them didn't realize that, I am from the US. He judged me because he saw the color of my hair, dark eyes. He didn't assume. He thought I was like from the local areas or whatever, even though I was dressed differently. And I was like, man, don't judge a book by its cover. I happen to be your neighbor to the south. Maybe someone who's watching you back. And it was like, oops, I'm sorry. I said, well, try to think before you speak. So my point in this, guys, is the idea that now the Canada's violation of those laws will end up being sort of defying what Canadian people want, because now it's became now the norm. I'll tell you this because I feel comfortable saying it. It becomes now the norm across the Western world that the governments don't care anymore what the people think. This is the best example. This is the best example in my opinion. And one thing that you also need to know about how this came about, it has to do with the US and Canada defense partnership. Now, there is a partnership between the US and Canada, which goes all the way back to, can anybody tell me what year did this partnership start? Let me see in the chat box if you can type in the year when this particular partnership started. All right, let me see, guys. The question is, what year did the partnership, the defense partnership between Canada and the United States start? Imran, you said 1940, you're closer. Khadija, 1988. No, before that. One more chance. During NATO time, that's correct. Well, if you think when NATO was established. No. Yeah. Karakulak, you're close. It was 1950. 1950. That's when the North American neighbor have joined the mutual beneficial terms and conditions regarding the trade of military weapons and related components. And all this was done through a partnership called the Defense Production Sharing Agreement between Canada and the United States. And basically, this is when you realize that all the Canadian-made defense goods, which account for about 49.1% of all of that, is subject to export. So, and this is why it's violate now its own regulations by end up sending weapons and ammo to a location where atrocities are being committed as we speak. And again, you think about the images that I usually do not like to put. It's sad. It's sad to see. It's when you see this kind of images, it's very, very painful. You have to have a heart of steel not to feel anything. We all get emotional in our own way, but for something like that. But in any event, what I need you to understand is that the treaties between Canada and the US, that's part of where you notice if the US tell Canada do XYZ, Canada will not say no because it can't. So when it comes down to even using certain type of weapons, Canada will take part of whatever it is ordered to do. This is no different than what took place with you all remember this lady here. Can anybody tell me he is? Let me see again. And again, once, guys, it's just to get you part in the conversation here. And I'm just looking at the chat box here to see if there's any people who do not need to be here. I tend to get them out. Yeah. All right, let me see your answer, guys, quickly here. Yes, not the CEO, but the CFO. You got it. You got it. Ramples one. You got it. CFO. This is Meng Wanzhou. So, and why am I sharing this with you? Because you all know the story, and I covered this extensively on the other channel back then, because this channel wasn't created at that time. And it was the idea that Canada had to do the bidding for the US because he was ordered to do so. So there was no reason for Canada to arrest her during her transit. She was going to Latin America at that time, because I got the word from the company itself, a representative of the Huawei, which I was in talk with to find out the truth about it. And they were kind enough to share that information with me. So now back to our topics about Canada here. So to understand about also where this now humanitarian laws are being violated, and Canada's taking part of that. So is Britain. Britain has now, the UK is now the one that is providing intelligence for the Israelis to target whatever. Yeah, the UK. So, and this is where, when you understand about, as I mentioned to you regarding the ATT, the Armed Trade Treaty that Canada signed with the UN, regulates and sets conditions for the global flow of arms, including prohibition on signatories transferring weapon to another country if there is a plausible risk they could be used in violation of international humanitarian law, such as war crimes. It's spelled out right there, and Canada doesn't care. Like I said earlier, just go back 3 years ago and see what Dictator T did to demonstrators in Ottawa regarding the policies of the COVID. Yeah, and by the way, it was, to my knowledge, that GoFundMe at that time blocked $10 million that was donated by people in support of those demonstrations. So GoFundMe too has no good record. So, which is shame. Leave politics aside. If you are a platform for the kind of to accept donations because you are taking a percentage of that, which is fine, that's business transactions. But why are you succumbing to the government's requirements or orders if you are just a private business, whatever? So, then there is one other thing that I need to talk to you about, and it has to do with NORAD. You need to understand the importance of this, because this is part of this argument. So Canada, I have an insignia that, rather, of NORAD. This is the insignia of NORAD, and is headed by always a four-star general from the US, and his name, the current one, he's been assigned in 2018, still till today, General Glenn Van Herk. He's a four-star general. He's the head of NORAD. So NORAD, kind of Canada's benefiting from this privilege of defense relationship with the United States. And I'm not going to get into the detail of what areas they cover and all that. I'll provide you the link. You can read it later on. For now, suffice it to say that when you look at certain treaties like this, or partnerships, whatever term you want to call them, it becomes clear who's in charge here. So the Canadian government has to follow orders from Washington. No ifs and buts. And that's exactly what Dictator T is doing. Now, Dictator T is following two orders from two separate entities. One of them is in Washington, and the other one is WEF. All the policies that Canada embarked on for the last 3 years had to do with WEF. So, and we all know the policies for that. What are they trying to do? So, and here is one thing I need you to know about this NORAD. A lot of people do not know the ins and outs of it because all they think is about the F-18s and just protection of sky, whatever. No, yes, it is part, but there is another hidden element to it. And this one is, in fact, is that Canada and the United States have reciprocal arrangements to ensure permit, free license, free movement of most military items between the two countries. And yeah, in a simple language, that means if we want to sell something to country A, we can ask Canada, hey, just send some weapons, put them under our own receipt, and you'll get the money later. And Canada, in this case, doesn't have to, it doesn't matter violating the law or not. They go with it because the boss says so. And this is where this flawed and the violation of the law within Canada, that's why those human rights in Canada are advocating for more transparency regarding what's going on with Canada sending weapons to Israel and ammo, that is $60 million worth of ammo to Israel in part of the Gaza war. So, and that's very, very, by the way, what they're going to be sending, as a matter of fact, the U.S. Defense Security Cooperation Agency said that General Dynamics ordnance and tactical systems would supply tens of thousands of M933A1 120 millimeter high explosive mortar cartridges and related equipment. That's what's going on to Gaza. And yeah, because this is why the weapon is going to Israel. In Canada, they will face no regulatory sort of mandatory screening or debates or whatever. And Canadians are kept in the dark. But you need to understand also why Canadians are kept in the dark. This has to do with the bill called Bill C-11. And I'm going to detail for you because you need to understand what was going on with this bill here. That this the dictator T has been pushing for it very, very aggressively. So what happened? Because Canadians now, are coming to realize that they've made a mistake of taking free speech, thinking, oh, we're a free country. No, because back then, dictator T was close to having new laws in place that would, listen carefully, guys, that would expand government regulations of online speech in Canada. In fact, when Biden back then, and I remember that, Biden was planning to travel into Canada at that time on an official state visit. That was back in 2000, I think, 19 or 20, somewhere around that time. And dictator T looked at it differently because that's when he introduced this bill C-11. Well, basically this Canadian legislation, which has been in question, but it passed, this online streaming act. Basically, what is it? It's for way the government to prioritize. This is what they are telling the members of the parliament. The needs and interests of Canadians. Yeah, if you can believe dictator T has the interest and the welfare of the Canadian at heart, then you are mistaken. The Trudeau administration claimed at that time, still hold by that, the act, meaning the Bill C-11, the act will ensure online algorithm promote Canadian content on social media and streaming platforms like Netflix, Disney, and Spotify. Yet, when a multi-partisan group of Canadian senators proposed an amendment to the legislation to protect what individual citizens, Canadian in this case, say on social media from government oversight regulations, the Trudeau administration rejected the amendments. You all know what it means. Simple language. If you say something the government doesn't like, it has the right to disregard it and censorship. Basically, that's what it is. And this about the promotion, the creation of promoting Canadian contact, it's nonsense. Because here is why, and I'm going to tell you why. I was looking at the recent, when I say recent, the last year or so, articles pertaining to the real current economic conditions in Canada. All of them stating that Canada is projecting an increase in its economic output. You and I know, especially for my viewers in Canada, you know the truth. You live there. Ask any Canadian about the housing market. Ask any Canadian about food prices. And the reason when I did the research, what I found out is that most of the articles that I read are from Canadian outlets, which means under the government control. So, of course, they're not going to criticize the government. This is what has become of Canada. And when I say Canada, I'm referring also to my country here. My country is going the wrong direction anyway. Has been going for the wrong in the wrong direction for a long time. It really pains me as an American to be saying this, but it's the truth. I can't be nice or cherry picky about it. No. I don't do that kind of nonsense. You know, you give credit where credit is due. You provide criticism when criticism is due. And my country is doing the wrong things. Has been doing the wrong things. You will think at least 20 years ago, things were slightly different, even though you start to see the direction. And even in my time during the government, you were trying to push against certain directions to the best of my abilities because there's something called the chain of command. You know, here is the thing, and I'm going to share with you this in general term. When you have the vice president of the United States stops by your office unexpectedly because he or she wanted to have the intelligence report adjusted to fit the narrative, you know, that's the chain of command. It's wrong. And this is why I decided to do this. Because Canadians do not know. They are oblivious to what's going on because the Trudeau's government controlling. And again, it's their country. They can decide whatever. They can vote for whomever. You know. But even for Canada, we are the good leaders. At least when you remember from way back, there used to be ones at least they could move Canada in the right direction. Even Trudeau's father, Pierre Trudeau, it was because of him that Canada established good relations with China economically. It was Pierre Trudeau that opened up that, sort of established that relationship between Canada and China. And Canada benefited from economic incentives with China. China also benefited because it's a big market. Not as big as, of course, the US or some other locations. But still, they benefited from it. But after that, you start to see, I remember when Jean Chrétien used to be. I remember when Brian Mulroney used to be. Stephen Harper. All of them you start to see the direction of Canada going. When I was a kid, you will think about Canada like the ideal country. Why? Because it stood for what was right back then. Not anymore. That era is gone. And this is why Canada is going in the wrong direction. And now it's become clear that is contributing to atrocities in Gaza. So there is blood on the Canadian government's hands. So, and that's up to the Canadian people to decide how they want to move forward. So this is one of the key aspects that I wanted to share with you guys here to understand where this is all going. When they passed this bill C11, it wasn't about the Canadian content. That's nonsense. It was about ensuring that the narrative fits what the government wants. We have it right here. I mean, you look at here, just what when they took down my post, just a post to the community. It's because I wanted just to tell you guys about something that I want you to be aware of. They took it down, and they said I'm in violation of the community policy. What policies are those? And what was the violation? They don't even disclose that. We all know. We don't need to beat the dead horse. We all know where this is going. And this is why I want to talk to you about this particular topic that I posted the community post about on Thursday on the other location. Simple as that. At least for that one, still okay. Because I just find out this morning that Twitter, X, took down an account of Bassem Youssef. I don't know if you guys know who he is. He was I think a surgeon or something, and turned into doing shows. And Bassem, a very smart dude. They took down his account on Twitter because he criticized Israel. Well, if Elon Musk is saying freedom of speech is important, he had to cave in to the masters. It just to me, that's the role of some of us who sits on this end here. It's a responsibility, and that is the reason why I do what I do for you and with you, because we all of us together in this, the whole community. So that's all I have to share with you guys on this, because I don't stay here rambling if I don't have anything of substance to say. I'm going to answer a question or two, but before I do that, I want to give a shout out to BG as becoming a new member of the channel. Thank you very much for becoming a new member, and much appreciate your support. It goes without saying for those who sort of support the channel. I'm very grateful for your continued support, and it means a lot. Ramples S, can you tell me which one is that? Let me just see here. Yeah, Ramples S, if you can just highlight to me which one is this, and I'll take care of it. I did remove one already. Don't they have something better to do? I mean, I just find it very unusual and weird that someone will have no just wasting time of doing this nonsense stuff. That just shows you the level. I just find it the level of don't those people think? I mean, can they just take a step back and think? What are they doing with their life? Just Kurt Boss, you are right. I'll let you guys see this on the screen. You are right. So it's just very anyway. Let me see a question from you guys, and we'll just go from there. Abel Malcolm, thank you for correcting me. I thought it was Egyptian. Bassem Youssef is a Palestinian comedian. Thank you very much for clarifying this. All right, let me see. Yes, Karakulak, he's a smart guy, Bassem. Yeah, it's just saying. Shame. But we all know. Let me see a question from you guys. All right, let me see here if there's a question. Francis Tango, Doctor, or maybe they are paid to do these things. Yes, they are, I'm sure. But again, isn't that a waste of life? Can you imagine, let's say just 10 years from today, they'll be just asking themselves, what have we accomplished in the last 10 years? We've been just trolling in accounts and all that. How significant is that to one's life? If you couldn't do something that is tangible, that is meaningful, once again, it falls back to my point about meaning in life. And those people, they just live in a hollow existence. It's like a dead man walking. That's all it is. So, Dewdrop, he's Egyptian. That's what I thought. I thought he was Egyptian, not a Palestinian. He was Egyptian. So anyway. All right, let me see a question from you guys. Yeah, so Karakulak, thank you. Yeah, Basim Youssef is Egyptian, not Palestinian. And I knew, but again, that's how we learn, guys. That's how it works. So okay, Lucid Word, you said I wrote to you a question. Do you know how many lost lives in conflict in Yemen, Ethiopia? I don't know. It's a lot, especially with the conflict that the Saudis, with the support of the US, the German, the French, and Americans, and I won't be surprised the Canadians were also involved during, and they couldn't defeat the Yemeni groups at that time. But there were a lot of dead people and poverty and malnutrition and so forth. As far as the numbers, no, I don't know that exactly. Ramples, yes, I do need a moderator. If anybody of you guys will volunteer, I will be very grateful. I can only do so much, because I like to focus my conversation. So whomever is interested, we can communicate offline here and we'll talk. So. Okay, let me see a question. Okay, let me see here. To those who are really interested in helping me out with this, can you connect with me on LinkedIn? I am on LinkedIn, so we can talk over there and we'll just go from there. So I'll wait till I get a request to connect with you on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn, just David Wallaru. You'll see me there, and we'll talk offline because that's not the right platform to be talking about that one. So. All right, let's start with this question here. What do you think Canadians can do to change our situation? Do you think protesting is still effective? Yeah, no, well, to a degree, but you still have to change the leadership. Simple as that. That's usually how it works. If this voting works, then you have to. There's to me where the flaws of the system. To me, if you vote for someone and if someone doesn't do a good job, you don't wait till the end of their terms. You get them out. Simple as that. So in this case, Canadians will have to wait till the next elections. But Canada is no different than the US. So it's going to be meet the new boss as the old boss. Zanita Petroska, do you think Canada is waiting for the UK scenario? Well, they are seeing what's going on, of course. And Canadians are smart enough to know what's good for them. Most of them are talking about. Remember, it was that conversation about Quebec seceding from the rest of Canada. I'll tell you, as one who knows a little bit about Canada, because I used to live there, and if you take Quebec can sustain itself economically. Yeah. Ontario can sustain itself economically. They all can become independent. But of course, they will fragment the Canadian society. But again, if that's what they want, all I know is that economically speaking, those two locations, provinces, they can sustain themselves economically. Will they do it? I don't know. I do not know. So, Johanna Dharma, who do you think will be the new member of BRICS? If I am to guess, You're looking at Azerbaijan, the possibility of it. That's what I see coming for strategic reason. Kurt Boss, America is a history now. It is indeed. It is indeed. That's why some didn't like the video I made last time. So, Ramples are one question. If Canada has the pact with the US, that means it cancels the ATT signature. Well, it just the pact with the US preceded the ones for, but still, if they have to be part of the UN treaty, they have to obey by the rules of the UN, not the US. But we all know the UN is toothless. UN doesn't have any power. So it's we create the laws and we bend them to our favor. Simple as that. That's the way I see it. So, guys, I am going to sign off here because I need to go. Truth Seeker. Let me read this one to the community. Quebec has a lot of benefits from Canada than other provinces. That is true. That is true. I'm just talking in the hypothetical. Should that opportunity moves forward, Quebec will be able to sustain itself. And yeah, they are getting benefit from. It's part of what the central government in Ottawa ought to do. That's why you have provinces and so forth. So that's the way I see it moving forward. So, guys, I am going to work on this afternoon on the story for you for Thursday. Remember, I'll let you know. I'll post it in the community. Just keep an eye on that. And I'll see you tomorrow. I'm not doing any live stream. I have to take care of some admin work here that I need to do. And I will see you on Thursday. As always, remember, geopolitics impact your daily life in more ways than one. Till next time, guys. Bye-bye.